Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soul Archaeology. I am recording this from a hotel room in the Valley in Los Angeles. So we have been evacuated from our home. So if you hear noises or if it sounds different than usual, that's why. This has been such an intense week to be in Los Angeles. And I just want to start by saying thank you to everyone who has reached out and sent their love and prayers and support to us. It's definitely been a very intense and pressurized and charged and trying week here. We are currently, like I said, evacuated from our home, and we live in Topanga Canyon. So you've probably, seen it on the news if you've been tracking the wildfires here in Los Angeles. And it was so interesting because a lot of people have been reaching out referencing the 2025 forecast episode that I recorded at the end of 2024 for the energy of 2025. And I know in that episode, it's the last episode, so you can go back and listen to it if you'd like. And if you haven't listened to it, I would highly recommend that you do, because a lot of what I'll be talking about and referencing all year on this podcast will be held within that episode too. I also recommend, if you are interested in really getting and feeling into the energy of this year, how you can work with it, how you can set yourself up for flow and ease, to purchase the 2025 forecast workshop. It's on my website in my link tree, and it's a really, really helpful guide. But I talk a lot about wildfires in that episode and in that workshop as well. A lot of people have been reaching out saying that they've listened to it either during, before, after these wildfires broke out in LA. And yeah, it encapsulates the energy that we are currently navigating collectively. And I will talk a little bit about how the current transits are affecting LA, affecting us all collectively and individually in different ways, and how we can kind of work with this energy right now to fortify and root and ground us more deeply into a sense of self, safety, and security. I'd also like to note that we are still very much in it. We're evacuated. We don't know when we'll be able to go back to our home. We don't know, how safe our home is. I think intuitively I feel that it will be safe, but so many have lost everything. Many people I know and love. It's a very, very tender time to be living in this city and to be connected to people you love who are living in this city. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll just give you a little recap. But we had the most destructive modern fire in Los Angeles history that broke out on Tuesday, January 7th. And I was actually in sessions when it broke out. My partner, Matt, let me know that there was a fire. He was down in Malibu at the vet, and it started in the Pacific Palisades, which is about 20 minutes away from us, just down the coast, but probably only 2 miles or so from, as the crow flies through the mountains. And this fire just moved extremely quickly through the village of the Pacific Palisades, probably destroyed the structures in that area more so than any area. I'm still foggy on details. I think that there's still so much we don't know, so I'm hesitant to talk too much about it. But basically, the wildfire then spread to up the Pacific Coast Highway through Malibu, and then started entering the canyon, Topanga Canyon, where I live, and even dipped down into Santa Monica, into Rustic Canyon areas that are very residential. Topanga is very heavily vegetation, so it's mostly state park and vegetation. We live in the mountains, but there are many homes sort of spread out and dispersed throughout the landscape. And so we were evacuated on Tuesday evening, and we left knowing that to have a mandatory evacuation was pretty serious, considering the fire was down at the ocean. Came to a hotel and really only took a few belongings with us, thinking that we were returning back home. But the fire really progressed from there and has really wreaked havoc all across the Santa Monica Mountains. At the same time, another fire broke out in Altadena and the Pasadena area and just completely decimated many neighborhoods, many residential neighborhoods and areas. And we are very much still in it. We are just on the other side of the mountains. We can hear the sirens. We can hear the planes and the helicopters. The firefighters have been absolutely incredible. We've received reinforcement from other countries, from other states. So I feel like as far as the fire is concerned, we have all the resources we need. What led to the fires, why there was such a rapid spread especially in residential areas, we are still unsure. And I'm very hesitant to speak about that because I'm just not clear on the details fully. But I'd like to speak to some of the energetic influences and astrological influences that I think are present now that can maybe shine some light on how we can work with this energy to heal, repair, move forward, ground, root more deeply into a sense of safety and security amidst chaos. We've had news networks from all over the world in Topanga over the last few days, and so I know this is something that is being covered globally. So yeah, I mean, I think there will be a lot that comes forward that we just don't know about now, but I don't want to speak too much about it, just not knowing what the exact details are. I'd also like to just take a moment to send some light in healing and love to those who have lost virtually everything they own in this fire. I have some dear friends and people I know who I'm connected to through community. And I just really like to just maybe take a pause in the moment to send love and healing to all of them. The people, the land, the animals, all that we've lost, and all the unknown that we continue to navigate. So as we continue to navigate the unfolding of this here in Los Angeles, of course, this is not just happening here, it's happening collectively. The energetic climate is collective, so it is global. And where it manifests really just depends on the karmic imprinting and, of course, the energetics of that place and the people that are there. I mentioned in the 2025 forecast that this year would be dominated by air and fire. We're moving from water and earth, the outer planets in water and earth, into air and fire. Pluto is already in Aquarius. We have Neptune and Saturn entering Aries this spring, Uranus entering Gemini this summer. But right now, we're very much so in this space of reckoning. This internal landscape, the underworld of Mars, and still in the energy of this Mars and Pluto opposition that was exact on January 3rd. And this opposition, this transit, is historically quite destructive. It's volatile. It is intense energetically. It forces and brings things to the surface, underworld material. Mars and Pluto both deal with our drive, our passion, our aggression. This opposition really activates any hidden dynamics around power and protection, in particular with Mars in Cancer. It really deals with protection. Any deep ancestral patterns that are ready to be released, emotional purging and clearing. And it really brings us into a deeply transformative space, really looking at our core wounds around safety, control, how we move through life, how we assert ourselves. It's an opportunity because Mars is retrograde, Pluto is direct, to really release old protective mechanisms, to bring to the surface where we seek control and safety through gripping, through power dynamics. This opposition between Mars and Pluto is bringing so much unconscious material to the surface. It's a reckoning point, but it's also a point of intensity. A lot of power dynamics, like I said, can come to the surface. Core wounding around anger, frustration, will, and power. It's also been historically a destructive time where we realize how our anger can destroy, where toxic rage and anger can erupt and create chaos. Mars is a very physical planet. So with Mars being on January 3rd, it was at 0 degrees of Leo. We had this opposition before it dipped back into Cancer during its retrograde journey, where it will be until April. So we have these major themes around Mars and Cancer over the next few months. And Mars is currently out of bounds, which means it's free to express in the way it wants to. And with Mars retrograding, it can be in old material, old core wounds, old emotional patterns. It's in Cancer currently, so it's digging up old emotional material where we feel perhaps unsafe, where we feel under-resourced, surfacing old suppressed emotions that we haven't been able to fully acknowledge and release until now. It is a time of reckoning, and as we know, as I've mentioned before, when planets go retrograde, they enter the underworld of that sign. So we're in our emotional underworld, examining our own emotional suppression, where we hold pain, suffering, grief, density related to our sense of safety, our sense of belonging, our sense of connection, our relationship with our mother, our relationship with our home, what we consider to be our roots, with Mars ruling the 4th house. It's also surfacing issues around home and security, environmental protection. These pieces and parts are coming to the surface as Mars retrogrades through Cancer. And Mars is the planet of war. Pluto is the planet of the underworld, its destruction, its death and rebirth. When these two planets face off, it's very likely that something will have to die in order to be reborn. And as we know that the phoenix rises through the ashes to evolve and upgrade, to be born anew. And with Mars currently retrograde, although we feel this tension, we feel this anger, we feel this frustration, we feel the emotional intensity coming to the surface, especially because we also have this week a full moon, and I'll kind of talk about that in a moment, but things may feel intense, charged, emotionally, energetically dense, but they also may feel unclear because Mars, the planet of assertion and action, is dipping into the underworld of a water sign. So it's slower moving. It's not as attuned and clear around what next steps to take. It might feel all of this, but not know where to place it or put it. And however this energy is translating in your life, it's important to note that there's an internal or subterranean pressure to feel or express something that really needs to be moved through you right now. And as we know that emotions don't just dissolve, they get stored and stuck if they're not expressed. And because we are so conditioned as humans, even though we're technically animals, we're mammals, we've been conditioned through our societal norms to suppress what we need to express, what wants to be shared. So it creates these tension patterns within the body. So the physical body and the subconscious are storing these emotional charges, but we seemingly move on. So what could be happening now is old material can be activated as we move through this intensification of the energy. So we need to be able to go in and process that unconscious material, especially with this full moon in Cancer that I'll talk about in a moment. So this week is intense as we move through this collective intensity, this collective chaos and trauma. It's not necessarily going to dissipate anytime soon. Like I said, we are in Mars Retrograde until February 23rd, and then we dip out of it, go direct, but still continue in its shadow until May. And then on the 13th, we have a full moon in Cancer at 24 degrees, 2:26 p.m. Pacific. On the 15th, on January 15th, we have a Sun and Mars opposition. Sun in Capricorn, Mars and Cancer opposing each other. And then on the 18th, January 18th, we have a Venus conjunction with Saturn. So this is a bit of a pressurized week. It's bringing old unconscious material to the surface. And with Mars in its retrograde, like I said, things might feel very intense and emotional and charged, but not necessarily clear. Mars in Cancer is not clear. It's unclear. It's a bit slower. It's hard to know what to do, how to act, what next steps to take. And that's why it's so important to return to the body that holds the unconscious material and notice what's there that's old, that we can process through, that we can allow to express now that didn't get a chance to before. This energy of Mars retrograding through Cancer over the next few months is really helping us to recalibrate our nervous systems, our sense of safety in the holding patterns, the unknown. If we can resource from this space, we can resource through anything. If we can find and anchor and fortify our roots here and now, we can do it anywhere. And this is what I see happening throughout this year is these waves of intensity that bring us into our old material, giving us a time and a place and a space to process what has been so that we can anchor into a deeper sense of self, a more upgraded sense of self, a more fortified and rooted sense of self to weather the storms that are coming. Because I have a feeling that what is happening in Los Angeles is not an isolated event. I think that these experiences will continue to happen globally throughout this year, 2026, 2027, really through 2023. And what we can do is work to condition our nervous systems to find safety, even amidst chaos, unknown, to unplug from what feels unhelpful, unsafe, fear-based, and plug into our higher knowing, our higher heart, and our deep sense of security and safety within that we have cultivated through our rituals, routines, and practices. We're being conditioned currently to feel more resourced in times of unknown. We also just had the North Node move into Pisces on January 11th. Right before that happened, the North Node squared Mars retrograde in Cancer, creating a bit of a pressure cooker or a portal of intensity and giving us a glimpse into what the next 18 months really look like. These opportunities to find more surrender, more faith in the unknown. We're doing so much inner work, especially as Mars retrogrades in Cancer, especially as we are brought to these internal spaces that still hold fear programs, that still hold us in these gridlock patterns of freeze, fear, fight, intensity. This Mars retrograde period really invites us into a deeper review of many aspects of our lives, but especially how we really assert ourselves through our emotional landscape. Cancer is, of course, ruled by the moon, our internal landscape, our emotions, our inner world. It governs our inner world, our sense of safety, belonging, our emotional foundations. It's connected to the mother. So with Mars moving backward through this territory, we're really called to look at how we navigate emotional triggers, our relationship with our protective patterns. Cancer is the mother, so we think about the mother bear, mama bear. It's also the crab, and it shells up when it feels activated, triggered. It's having us examine the way we defend our boundaries. It's also bringing us into really old family patterns around anger, action, will, power. Cancer rules the 4th house in our charts, which is the home. It's our roots. It's our soil, where we come from, where so many of our subconscious patterns are born. It's also showing us how we respond to conflict, how we nurture and protect ourselves through times of conflict, uncertainty, change. It's really having us track within our bodies where we hold these tension patterns, these old patterns of how we respond and react when we feel unsafe, when we feel challenged. And it's bringing us into the old protective mechanisms that no longer serve. We're really, at the end of the day, with this Mars retrograde journey that we've been on that has been so deeply activating for all of us collectively and individually, we're building new pathways for a more regulated response to life and to all of it that it brings. And I see this really woven into this experience in Los Angeles. I've noticed really old mechanisms and patterns within my physical body that I have defaulted to throughout this time. And it's really brought so much awareness around where my work really lies. And I'm so grateful for that, right? I'm grateful for what's been brought to the surface so that I can bring it through and up in the present moment to process, feel, and move through the charge. For me, it's really been about holding the higher frequency. Through this time, I've really realized, and this is very Pluto in Aquarius as well, it's already delivering its medicine in a very high level, zoomed out way. But it's brought me into this realization that we all play a part in this collective matrix, this collective community. Seeing the community that I live in really mobilize during this time has been incredible. But I've been noticing everyone's wired differently and everyone plays a different part. Certain people are producers, they're organizers, they're able to really jump in, organize material and information, and create action plans. Other people are warrior energy, they just jump in and they start to act and respond. Other people hold back a little bit and watch, examine what's occurring. Some people really come in on the other side when resources are needed for healing and support. Some people are so good at holding the frequency of safety, of peace, of light. So everyone plays a part. And I think that's going to be really important as we move forward into this new world that we're building. It's also important for you to sit with and examine, what is your medicine? And how can you strip away these old patterns held within your body, these old emotional patterns that keep you from fully embracing and embodying that wisdom and that medicine? For me, I noticed really old familial patterns of chaos and my familiarity with and relationship with and even attachment with chaos and emotional intensity that created this looping in my system to want to be plugged into it, to want to be attached to what was occurring. And I've had to really pull back and separate out from it so that I can be clear, so that I can be a container for healing and support to the people around me, my community, friends, and my clients. Holding that high frequency, that higher vision for what we can be on the other side of this catastrophe, so that others who are in it so deeply can have the space to process the emotional layers of this experience. That I take time to process my own emotional layers related to this experience, so that I can be that support system, that beacon of light, that anchor for healing when people need it on the other side. and to tend to what I need to tend to so that I can be available for that when the time comes. We all play a part, and it's really important now for you to notice what your part is and perhaps what's keeping you from fully embodying that medicine. I have a feeling it's probably being activated and brought to the surface right now. Another piece and part of this is really tending to mothering and protecting our inner child, tuning into what we're experiencing and feeling, what the emotional experience is internally with connected to our inner child, and how we can create a sense of safety and security for that part to move through this time feeling more secure, more confident, more protected, more resourced. As we move into this full moon energy on Monday, January 13th at 2:26 p.m. Pacific, we'll see these themes around emotional processing, emotional excavation come to the surface. As we know, a full moon is a culmination point. It's where we reach the moon's full illumination, where the sun is fully illuminating the moon and revealing to us our unconscious material, what's oftentimes hidden within our internal landscape, our subconscious. During a full moon, the sun fully illuminates the moon, our internal space, our emotional landscape. The moon is at home in Cancer, so this is always a deeply emotional moon. It really brings us into our relationship with our emotions, our past, our home, our inner mother. It's related to the fourth house, which is the house of home, the soil that we grew up on, past, where we come from, what has shaped us. And full moons really illuminate our internal world. The sun, which is consciousness, is illuminating our internal world where we have maybe not gone before, what's ready to be witnessed, seen, and excavated. This moon is conjunct or right next to Mars Retrograde. So these two are working together to bring up this unconscious material, this emotional material. We might feel like the old is coming up. We might feel that patterns and behaviors that we had already released or moved through are coming up again. And Mars is right now out of bounds, so it's a little bit unhinged. It's a little bit reckless. It feels free to act and move without consequence, which can be challenging when it's in Cancer and when it's retrograde, because it's really bringing up emotions that are old that might not actually apply to the present moment, but want to be expressed. So it's an important time to create space, to let yourself feel and move physically through what you're experiencing emotionally, to find the connection to your inner mother, to self-resource, to tend to your inner child, to give it what it needs to feel more safe, more secure, more loved, more attuned to. Because Mars is out of bounds, it might feel that our actions are reckless, unhinged, we're a bit reactive. Our emotions will probably feel that way too this week. I've personally been noticing a correlation to the pandemic during this time of being evacuated and going through this collective trauma with the city that I live in. And it's been made very clear to me through my subconscious that I'm holding material around that timeline that hasn't been healed. And in many ways, we have not fully healed from the COVID times collectively. We experience this major collective trauma without the actual repair on the other side. And when we go through trauma, we need containers. That's what our ancestors had, is when we experienced something that was too much, too big, we had a container to process it through. We just don't have those containers built into our societies anymore. And so chaos ensues and we experience this uncertainty, this unknown. We feel like we're going through it alone. And I've been noticing those same feelings that I had in 2020 being quarantined alone here in Los Angeles, being brand new to LA and being quarantined here just with Arlo and I. And of course, I had my dear friends down in the South Bay, but it was a very scary time and it feels similar for me within this space. So it's just interesting for me to understand the astrology and to know that this unconscious material wants to be repaired in the present moment. And what's beautiful is that we can do that. We have neuroplasticity. Our brain is plastic. We can change and mold and shape the past in the present moment. We can create new neural pathways. So where there was isolation and fear before, we can repair in the present moment. The subconscious can't discern what's happening now and what happened then. So we can go into that space and we can rewire it and repair it through the present moment by simply doing things and approaching things in a different way, choosing consciously with intention to heal through handling it differently, through asking for help, through approaching it from a higher perspective. We're also processing the last 18 months with the North Node being in Aries. This full moon, it's at 23 degrees Cancer, and it really illuminates our emotional landscape just days after the nodes shift into Pisces and Virgo. So we're creating this powerful portal for emotional integration and release. The sun is in Capricorn, opposing the moon in Cancer, of course. So we're really working with the axis of inner security and outer achievement. Because Cancer rules family and home and belonging, it's quite literally the roots or the soil where we come from. There's so much potential for healing family patterns and ancestral patterns within this time. We'll be experiencing collective emotional processing as well as individual. It's an opportunity to really track where we hold ancestral or past patterns in our bodies, how our nervous system navigates between home, belonging, sense of safety, containment, and security, feeling into our relationship with safety and protection, listening to our body's wisdom around boundaries, what we need to feel safe. With the moon being in this watery Cancer, it's of course going to feel intense and maybe even chaotic. How can we utilize this Capricorn energy to create some masculine containers? The wisdom of Saturn to create a space where we feel more safe through practical routines and practices. I will say this in every single episode. This is the year that you return to the simple practices that work for you, creating safety through routines, rituals, simplicity. We will need these masculine containers as we navigate this energy of 2025. I've just gone back to very simple practices as I've been navigating this space of chaos of being evacuated and processing this trauma, the fear, the unknown, all the things, quite literally going back to my roots, going back to basics. What nourishes me? What supports me? What helps me feel resourced and secure? This retrograde of Mars through Cancer, this full moon in Cancer, this is the month where we navigate what we need to become masters of our emotional landscape. And this doesn't mean that we won't feel emotional, that we won't feel emotions. Those are innate. That is inevitable and precious part of the human experience. But it means we will be able to reckon with and provide space for those emotions to process in real time rather than gripping and controlling them or suppressing them to feel more safe. This is how we build emotional intelligence, by creating intimacy with our own emotional landscape, by allowing ourselves to fully feel while maintaining healthy boundaries, healthy practices and rituals, self-care. Throughout this week and really throughout the first quarter of 2025, we will be healing deep survival patterns held within our psyche and our body. This is an alchemical moment for emotional mastery. The North Node, of course, is beginning to conjunct or join Neptune in Pisces. Neptune is completing its journey through Pisces this year and in early 2026. So things might feel foggy with the North Node conjunct Neptune. This North Node in Pisces is already beginning to work its magic. It's bringing us into this space of surrender, deepening our faith, and distilling us down to the truth that all we really have is faith. What I always say is when people hit rock bottom, the only thing you have access to is your faith. And when you can hook deeper and anchor deeper beneath that space, that's where we get the strength to navigate any storm. But if we don't have faith, we don't have anything. As things continue to break down, quite literally, we're seeing it in Los Angeles. Systems order, there's looting, there's larceny, there's basically almost everyone's sense of normalcy and routine has been disrupted. And it's in these times where we really get to see the health of our individual experience and our collective experience. As things continue to break down, there's more chaos, more uncertainty, more unknown. We must anchor to what we know, what is real and true and sure right here, right now. We're really up-leveling to a deeper knowing, more surrender, more faith. And this time, especially this year, 2026 even, it's going to test us. It's going to ask for us to find a deeper anchor, to find more surrender, more faith, more trust in a higher experience, in a higher power. Can you feel that pressure? There's so much swirling around, so much chaos, so much intensity. Can you go deeper into that center point within you? Find that anchor and grow deeper roots. Something I find fascinating about this time is that because we're in Mars retrograde, with Mars being out of bounds, it's in Cancer, it's dealing with water in particular. Mars is a fiery planet, but Mars in Cancer is watery. So it's bringing up tension around water resources, feelings of protection, family, home, belongingness, issues around home security and environmental protection coming to the surface. The warrior planet is in a compromised position in Cancer's waters. So it's not going to feel totally safe, which makes sense for what's happening in Los Angeles right now. Right before the fires broke out, we had a cardinal cross of tension and activation between Mars in Cancer and the North and South node in Aries and Libra. And as we know, retrogrades always bring us into past patterns. And with it being in Cancer, it's patterns around protection, resource management, safety, security. We're going to continue to see throughout this year, I really think, historical patterns around resources and protection surfacing. As we navigate building this new Earth, we are going to be faced with many very challenging and confronting realities around how we have navigated building the current systems, the current society on this planet. Land management, resources, water in particular feels very significant this year. I know many of the people I'm working with have been searching for a sense of home for a while. They've been relocated or are relocating. They're waiting to feel that sense of anchoring and belonging. We're going to be continuing to navigate this theme, I think, through quarter one of 2025 with Mars in Cancer. It's just unsure, uncertain. Even through this, 18-month transit of the North Node in Pisces, it's like, where can you create a sense of belonging within yourself? How can you trust that there's a higher path being laid out for you? How can you release control a little bit more? I actually looked up the birth chart of Los Angeles because this just feels, obviously it's happening to me personally, but it feels very significant in this global collective shift that we're experiencing too. I think the land, the mountains in particular, are unsettled. I think that the way that we have been navigating, inhabiting this land, this is really globally, but especially here in Los Angeles, is questionable and unsustainable. The way water is being managed in this state in particular is questionable. I think the issue of water rights will continue to be more of a focus over the next few years. LA was technically born, began to be colonized in the 1760s, but it was officially born in the 1850s, this modern Los Angeles that we see now. Of course, this land, the peoples that have inhabited this land for thousands of years, the Chumash have acknowledged this as a place, a sacred place, but with the modern structures of Los Angeles, what it is now, this modern way that it exists, was really born in 1850. That is the birth date of Los Angeles, technically. Its modern imprint of structure and society. It has a stellium in the late degrees of Aries, which means that Mars will be aspecting this stellium over the next few months. The full moon will also be aspecting the stellium, so we are not out of the woods here. We are not at all. Winds are expected to accelerate again on Monday and Tuesday in conjunction with this full moon. I wouldn't be surprised if things begin to accelerate early next week as well. This full moon will also be aspecting Los Angeles's Pluto at 28 degrees of Aries. So this coming week is a big week for LA in particular. And even if you don't live here, of course, or even if you don't know anyone or don't have any loved ones in this area, it's affecting all of us globally because this is a collective ripple. And a lot of our systems, our modern systems, are tied into this city and this land. So it's creating a ripple effect, and I'm not quite sure what that looks like yet. I'll be sitting with that energy and examining it, but there's a pretty intense collective purge happening currently. Neptune also was in Pisces when LA was born, which is interesting because we're completing that transit this year. So this is a lot about dissolving illusion, taking off the rose-colored glasses. This is a city of beauty, of really extreme beauty, but also much darkness. And I think in many ways, the darkness will continue to come to the surface in this city throughout 2025 as Neptune really completes its journey through Pisces. So this was a lot of information, but it's a big week collectively and also individually for each one of us. If you are interested to see how this impacts you individually, I would recommend you look at your natal chart, look at where you have 23 degrees, or really 20 to 26 degrees of a cardinal sign. So Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, or Libra. That means this moon will be aspecting you more intensely. It also means that Mars Retrograde will be aspecting your chart more intensely right now as well. I actually do not have any of my oracle cards with me. When I evacuated, I didn't grab many things, so I don't have an oracle card for today. But when I was dropping in to connect and ground and root before channeling this episode, I just asked what symbol or message really wanted to come through for all of you. And I saw two things very distinctly: a white lily and pyrite. And pyrite is a protection stone. It really helps us shield and protect from toxic materials, EMFs, emotional material and data, anything that is impure or not connected to a higher vibration. It's really connected to purification, which is interesting because we are in this energy where so much data is surfacing. There's a lot of collective chaos. There's a lot of impurity. There's a lot of density coming up and through the collective consciousness and the energetic material. And it's really important for us to utilize our resources and tools for clearing, for grounding, for protection. Quite literally, if you are in Los Angeles, the air is impure. There's toxins and chemicals that are coming out of these burning homes and structures. The water quality isn't good right now. So it's just a reminder to tend to your vessel, to tend to your energetic space as well. When I was dropping into that space, I just felt the pyrite in my palm, and it felt heavy and dense. It's made of iron. So it just felt to me really grounding, supportive, and protective. So you can quite literally go get some pyrite if you want. You can even work with it energetically, just kind of feeling it in your space, noticing what it feels like to have that weight, that density. You can set the intention that it pulls out any impurities in your field and just sit with the energy of protection in particular, noticing what it feels like to be protected, to be held, to have that guardian in your life. Maybe just picturing that you're surrounding yourself with pyrite, what it feels like to be held in that space. And to work with the energy of protection, of boundaries, of the masculine energy that really holds and guards us. The energy of the phoenix was also super present when I was dropping in to channel this episode. And I feel like pyrite and phoenix are so connected. It's that death and rebirth, the golden energy of fire. And lily, of course, is connected to, once again, purity, but also rebirth, new beginnings and hope, faith. Let it be that beacon of light that guides you to your new timeline, the new chapter, the sense of hope, clarity, and direction. It's also connected to Mother Mary. So if she is a guide for you or someone that you work with, or maybe you've never worked with her before, but just calling her into your space, allowing her to fill those gaps, those void spaces within you that are seeking mothering and attunement, compassion and love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience and presence. I am getting back to work next week. I love my work. I love my clients, and I feel like it really creates some normalcy, although I don't know where I'll be next week. I don't know how long we will be evacuated from our home. If these fires continue, what the landscape really looks like moving forward. So I am living in the space of complete and utter unknown with you. Thank you for, of course, your presence, for dropping in, for being in this space with me, for being so amazing and supportive. This community is just everything. It means the world, and I'm so grateful for you tuning in. It really, truly means the world. If you could share this episode, sharing on social media, sharing with a friend or a family member who maybe needs to hear it, I would so appreciate that, as always. If you have questions or if you'd like to just discuss anything that we talked about in this episode, I'm always here. I'm sending so much love to my fellow Los Angelans and for anyone who has been impacted by these catastrophic fires. I'm sending you so, so much love.